Let me share the screen. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين وهو خير ناصر ومعين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى الطاهرين. As we are looking at the brief history of Fiqh and Fuqaha from the minor occultation, and we have reached to the scholar whose name was Ibn Idris Hilli, and we said we'll talk a little bit about him, and then and after Ibn Idris Hilli, Muhammad Ibn Idris Hilli, who was known for Ibn Idris Hilli, however you see, is Muhammad Ibn Idris Ibn al-Hussein Ibn Qasim Ibn Isa Hilli Ajali. That was his name. However, he was known as Ibn Idris Hilli. He was the great-grandson of Sheikh Tusi. And Sheikh Tusi becomes an authority for about 100 years. Nobody criticized him. Very famous in terms of his istinbat, deduction of law, and also in other ulum, other sciences as well. He was becoming more like a imam, sort of, as they are in the Sunnis, in the sense that you have Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Hanbali. Yes, the belief system for us was 12 imams, but nobody really challenged the authority of Ibn Idris, of Sheikh Tusi. But apparently Ibn Idris managed to go against the odd, go against the norm, and criticize heavily, and he was well known for that. People in the Hawza do criticize him. However, the famous one regards him in high, holds him in high esteem. He is also known as Fakhruddin by Shahid Awwal. Shahid Awwal, who will come later on when we'll discuss other fuqaha. The title of Fakhruddin was given to him. One of the things that he went against against Sheikh Tusi was the exception of Khabar Wahid, which is known as a single source narration. When we'll do the second part of this series of Islamic law, which deals with the principles of usul, we will discuss in detail what Khabar Wahid really means. A khabar or a news or a narration that comes from one person. For instance, Jabir ibn Abdullah Ansari mentioned a hadith from the Prophet. Nobody else. Everybody narrated from Jabir. As other Sahabas, even for example, what we have today, the chain goes back to only one person, such as Jabir. Although Imam Ali was there, although Abu Zar was there, although others were there, but nobody really mentioned that hadith, but Jabir have mentioned that hadith. So it's a one source, it's a single source narration. It's known as Khabar Wahid, and Khabar Wahid for the usulis is considered as a hujjat, as a proof. Now why it is considered as a hujjat, inshallah we'll deal with that later. But if one rejects Khabar Wahid, then we have to really reject a lot of narrations that we have. And when we start rejecting narrations, that means we have to use aql. So Ibn Idris used aql extensively because he has rejected Khabar Wahid. So as he rejected Khabar Wahid, obviously it becomes very obvious that he is using aql a lot, which once again, aql is one of the usuli principles. The other things that he wasn't in line with Sheikh Tusi such as, for example, the purity of the well water. He was against that. He accepted the well water will stay najis if something falls, if a dead rat or if a dead body falls into the well. But these are the technical differences that he had. But one of the more elaborating difference is the khabar wahid, which he did not agree upon. Then after Ibn Idris Hilli, who kind of gave a new breath or a new sort of air to Usuli thought while criticizing Sheikh Tusi, where Sheikh Tusi was never criticized. He, by taking the name extensively, with all due respect, did criticize and went against Sheikh Tusi. Then you have his student, according to Shahid's calculation, but I checked other works which he might not have been a direct student of Ibn Idris, which is Muhaqqiq Hilli. There's Allama Hilli. Allama Hilli was the student of Muhaqqiq Hilli. Muhaqqiq Hilli, whose name is known as Abul Qasim Jafar ibn al-Hassan ibn Yahya ibn Sa'd Hilli, who died in 1277. So we are looking at the period how gradually, or how the chronological order, how beautifully it kind of sinks in with the minor occultation. And their works, like for example, Muhaqqiq Hilli's style of classification of fiqh is followed today. The book of Muhaqqiq Hilli, which is Shara'i al-Islam, is taught in the Hawza today. Is one of the first book that a student in fiqh learns. Is the Shara'i of is the book which has been translated as well. So what I'm trying to point out here, while looking at the history of fiqh and fuqaha, is that the works of 11th century, we have it today. And our fiqh and our ahkam, our practices is based on that sharia. Sharia al-Islam, if one really looks at it, it looks like a Tawzi'ul Masail, a book of Tawzi'ul Masail, how it is, very similar. So Muhaqqiq classified the ahkam into 4 parts. He classified it as worship, then 2-party contracts, 1-party contracts, and other commands. So Muhaqqiq Hilli was the student of Ibn Idris. Once again, you would find that how he added to the usuli thought, he added to the fiqh, which is organization of fiqh. For example, the books that he has organized in the format, there are about 10 or maybe more books. Shaykh Mutahari says there are 10 books of worship. Then there are 9 books of contracts, different contracts, which is in the course, which will come later. But as we are talking about Muhaqqiq Hilli, I just wanted to add, what his contributions were here, because it will not be just a dry history of, okay, his name was this and this is the period he did. But we really want to know as well his detailed contribution while we are doing their history. Later on, when we'll talk about Allama Hilli or Shahid Awwal or Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi and their contribution, we'll look at it, those as well. So here, Muhaqqiq Hilli, first he classified the fiqh. Now, obviously, for an akhbari, classification of hadith, classification of fiqh, organization, formatting them is considered as an innovation, is considered as a bid'ah. Even if a true akhbari will mention a hadith with the chain of narrators, he will not mention a hadith without mentioning the chain of narrators. But we have seen, as we mentioned earlier, from the time of Sheikh Mufid, even Sheikh Saduq, the chain of narrators were subtracted. It was not mentioned. But an Usuli but an Akhbari will never dare doing that. An Akhbari will not narrate a hadith unless he has the right, he has the permission from his predecessor, from his teacher, or from his teacher. Then he will mention. Like for example, the way we tend to send our texts or hadith here and there, to each other, or mention a hadith without mentioning the chain of narrators. For an Akhbari, this would be considered as an innovation. He will not accept this. Now, obviously, when we are talking about Muhaqqiq Hindi, who have organized the fiqh into books, who have classified the fiqh as worship, two-party contracts, or for example, one-party contracts or others, then this is also a bid'ah. But it was something that was required to organize it. It was something that was required for the protection of deen, for the protection of ahkam and fiqh. Now, when we are saying that he classified them into four parts, or when we talk about worship, in that worship we have mentioned earlier that in which the niyat is a condition. Niyat is something that is required. That is the first type, such as khums and zakat and hajj, fasting and prayers, which are considered as ibadat. This is the first classification, or the first group that comes about. Then you have the second type, in which the intention of nearness to God is not the condition, but they are performed with different intention, and intention of accepting and rejecting. If I sell you something, you accept this, and this acceptance is wajib upon you, but the niyat of nearness of God is not wajib upon you. When I make, for example, when I make a contract of marriage, the wife says that this is my meher, will you accept? The husband will say, I accept. Now, when the husband is saying, I accept, doesn't really require that niyat of nearness. It's a contract, and it is wajib for him to say. If he doesn't say, if he doesn't pronounce, and if he doesn't intend that he is accepting that very moment, that very present moment, then that contract is void. So therefore, the intention is not required. So here Muhaqqiq Hindi, he comes and he brings in all of those contracts, which are considered as two-party contracts, and he compiled them into one section. And a jurist who wants to educate himself, or who wants to become a lawyer, who wants to become a faqih, he goes through worship first. All the books, that are there in worship, he will go through them. For example, Kitab-e-Taharat. Obviously, like we said, some of those things which are in the coursework, you are aware of, but as it is part of the course, we really have to go through them. I'm not going to go through in detail, but what this will do is to really see how rich our fiqh is, and at the same time to appreciate the fuqaha who deal with this stuff day in and day out. Like for example, you have the book of Kitab-ut-Taharat, the book of cleanliness. Then the book of cleanliness is divided into external, cleanliness, non-inherent material, being, and then you have the taharat, which is the taharat of the body, the taharat of the clothes, other types. Then you have the second type of cleanliness, which is entering into the state of purity, the taharat of the ruh, For example, you have wuzu in order to pray, or for the circumambulation of the Kaaba, for example, for the tawaf of the Kaaba. Ghusl, for example, to make oneself pure, the ghusl mayyat, ghusl janabat, taharat after using the restroom, for example, and their hadiths and riwayat that are there, how a thing will become najis, how a thing will become pure, how a thing will remain najis. Every hadith and ayat that deals with taharat, it is discussed in the Kitab Taharat. And that is why we find, for example, Abu Hassan Najaf, Muhammad Hassan, Sahib Jawahir, who will come later on. His book is known as Jawahirul Kalam. For example, that book, Jawahirul Kalam, Kitab Taharat, of Sheikh Hassan Sahib Jawahir, will be taught as a text for Dars Kharij for at least 2 to 3 years. Just Kitab Taharat. Makarim Shirazi will be teaching Kitab Taharat. If you go online now as well, look at Kitab Taharat, how many years it took for him to finish the Kitab Taharat. That's Kharij now. Obviously, a faqih or a student of fiqh will begin with Shara'il Islam, which is the first book, like Tawzul Masail type of book. He will begin with that, and then he will do the primary book, for example, Luma, which is by Shahid Awwal, then the Shar Luma, Shahid Sani, and then after that, maybe he will do a Fiqh Imam Sadiq, as a transition. However, after Luma, Shar Luma, he sits in the Bahsai Kharij. So, he goes through all of that. Finally, he reaches the Dars of Kharij, and then he does Kitab Taharat once again. Muhakkik Illi is the one who have organized this. Then after that, you have Kitab Salat. Like I said, brothers, it might be a bit dry and boring. However, it is something very important that to see how rich the fiqh is and how much our fuqaha really go through. In Kitab Salat. Then in Kitab Salat, Salat of Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha, Salatul Jummah, the Shakiyat of Salat, the Qaza Salat, the Qaza Salat, the Traveler's Prayer, the Idda, whether it should be, prayer offered at the right time, at the menstrual cycle, the different types of blood and the prayers which are offered in that. All of this is dealt with in the Kitab of Salah. And it is quite detailed. We are just kind of providing the lip service. I'm not even reading the text of Shaykh Mutahari. I'm just, whatever coming to my mind, I'm mentioning those things. Then Kitab Zakat. In Kitab Zakat, once again, the way Zakat should be handled. Can Zakat be on money? Why it cannot be on money? Why it should be on those things which are, mentioned in the Hadith, such as, wheat and dates and, raisins, gold and silver and sheep and camels and cows and, and what is the nisab? Nisab meaning the criteria. How many sheep I should have, then how much zakat shall I give? Who shall I give the zakat to? Then you have the Kitab of Khums. We will end here in Kitab of Khums, which is the fourth book, sorry. And after that, we'll do the books of contract. Now, this organization was provided by the student of Ibn Idris, who's known as Muhakkik Hilli, and his student was Allama Hilli. Well, now Kitab Khums, once again, things are discussed in Kitab Khums. what is the criteria of Kitab al-Khums, and when it should be paid, how much it should be paid, what are the basis of that khums on treasure, khums makhlut bi halal and haram, who it should be paid to, why do you have this Same Sadat and Same Imam, and what is the validity of this Same Sadat and Same Imam? Is there a nasikh or the possibility of nasikh and mansukh, which is an usuli principle to be applied in khums? And we would say that no, Same Sadat was during a period in which the Sadat were persecuted, and we no longer need Same Sadat to be there. So therefore, it could be considered for the poor and needy. Can we really make that bypass? Can it be mansukh, for example, abrogated or not? That is discussed. Many of the scholars, are of the opinion, who are not really expressing because of the famous maraje who tend to divide Same Sadat and Same Imam in regards to khums. The some of the mujtahideen today, they are of the opinion that this has been mansukh. This was for a period of time, but not anymore. So this is called evolving of fiqh. This is how fiqh evolves, through the usuli principle. Nasikh and mansukh is an usuli principle. Now obviously an intellect is used for the application of a nasikh and mansukh. The nasikh and mansukh is based upon the Quran, is based upon the hadith. So the aql would say that yes, we could utilize that principle, which is based upon the Quran. Obviously, this is very foreign to an akhbari. This is very sort of, bid'ah in a way, going against what has been mentioned in the hadith of the imams for them. Now, that is discussed. So it is so rich. I mean, when we say that, these ulama, these mujtahideen, what do they really study and how much they really study? Well, there's a lot to study. We here sitting in the West, attend the majalis of the Maulanas and ulama, and we just, keep ourselves engaged with the basic, what is needed for us. But it is that mujtahid who is, digging deep into these riwayat, into these ayat, and trying to come up with the ahkam that will make us, that will relieve us, and that will make us fulfill our responsibility with an ease, without any issue. Then you have the other books which are in uqud, which are considered in contracts. I apologize, dear brothers, for not having the slides being prepared, because I was tied up and also not doing that well. That's why I couldn't do it. But inshallah, prior to our next session, what I'm speaking today, I will make them a slide and I will email it to Salman Bhai, and then he can forward it to you, all of you guys, inshallah. So now, in terms of the contracts, it is, hatta even to know the names of these contracts, even to know that, oh, such a contract exists, is also ibadat, because this is ahkam. This is deen. That's what we are talking about here. So maybe, a contract such as, for example, rahan, which is mortgage. Yes, we can deal with rahan. But what about the book of muflis? Muflis, which is known as the book of bankruptcy. A bankrupt. A person goes bankrupt. What are the ahkam of him? Can he sell his property? No, his property will not be sold. How will he be able to, pay his debt back? For instance, the mujtahideen and the hakim shah, they will sort of possess his property. It's complained, and then through that, you know, he will repay his debt back. Then you have book of Dhiman. Dhiman is liability. Someone comes and says, I am liable of the loan that I have taken. Zaid is liable for my loan. So if you have taken loan from me, Zaid is the person who is saying, I am liable. Then you have to approach to him. Now this is Kitab-e-Dhiman. Now there are difference of opinion here. The Ahl Sunnah's view is that no, the person who have taken loan he's the one to be approached, not the person, for example, who is the dhimma, who have taken the dhimma. Then you have Kitab Sulh, which is the book of peace. Sulh, this book of peace is not book of peace of jihad or war. No, Sulh, this agreement between two people on an issue. Then there are hadith and riwayat that talks about the mujtahid gives a verdict that is resolved. Then you have the book of shirakat, which is partnership. Then you have the book of mudareba, or a partnership of a capital and labor. For example, where two people would say that I will have a land, I will give the land, you plot the seeds. When the fruit comes, you will share the profit. Land is free of charge. What will happen the year after? From the same seeds, more fruit comes. The person who planted the seeds, next year as well, they're going to share the profit. What was the contract? What does the riwayat talk about? Then, for example, you have the shiraka bil ijbar, by force. Two farmers' wheat, they got mixed up together. Now they are majboor, they are forced to be partners to sell that wheat and get the profit and divide that profit. How that profit is divided, what is the criteria, that is also discussed. Then you have the partners, then you have in the contract the book of Arya, which is known as lending, the different types of lending. I lend you my house for the sake of Majlis and Matam, for the sake of Husseiniya. Can you have a class in there? Can you have a namaz in there? Can you have a etikaf in there? Can you can I use that while I have already given it as a Husseiniya? Or for example, can you lend this hall to others for private majalis? I have given you to the center as a Husseiniya. Now the center is renting it out for a jashan, for a wiladat, for a nikah, for an aqd. Can that be possible? Can that not be possible? That is discussed in the book of lending. Then you have the book of hijara, the book of hiring itself. Different types of hiring, different forms of hiring, the liability that comes about in hiring. I have hired something, then it kind of, who to hire, as you know the famous story of the companion of Imam Sadiq or Imam Kazim, both Imams, Imam Kazim and Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, was known as Jammal. Jammal is the camel, as he rented his camel to Mamun Rashid. And Imam said, why did you rent this camel to him? Expecting that you return. I mean, these are the things that we tend to hear in an akhlaqi way, but they are all based on fiqh. Then you have the wakala, wakil. Who could be a wakil? What criteria of a wakil? What is the authority of a wakil? How much freedom does that wakil have? That is the book of wakala. The book of waqf, the book of sadaqat. Waqf for a period of time, waqf for a period of time till I'm alive, but I will be using that house after my death. It will be considered as a waqf forever, for example. That is discussed in the book of waqf, in the book of sadaqat. Then the book of inheritance, how inheritance is divided, which is uh, detailed discussions in the Quran, then also in the Hadith, the three different levels of inheritors. If the first level is not there, it goes to the second. If the second is not there, it goes to the third. And it's too much of an information when you come to discuss inheritance. One example that I will give you here: what about the money of the person who have disappeared? You know, his property. What will happen of that? Uh, can it be given to his children? He has not appeared yet. Or what about a person's share? What about the share of a person who have disappeared? What about his share? For example, his father died, he inherited property, but he is not there. He has disappeared. What will happen? What about his wife and children? Will they inherit if he is not there? What about the inheritance of those individuals who died because the roof fell down or they drowned in the water? Because if one person died before the other, the person who died before, the money will be transferred to the person who died later. And as this person died later, the money have been transferred, then this money will be transferred to his inheritors. For example, husband and wife. The wife inherits from the husband and the husband inherits from the wife. If the wife have died first, the husband will inherit. As the husband will inherit, the share of the wife will be less. And as the husband have also died, the husband's parent will inherit, where they will have not imagined to inherit from the daughter-in-law, but because the roof fell, both died. Now who died first? How to discern that? No, the laws will define that, the ayat and riwayat. So obviously that is the book of inheritance. Then you have the book of Hibe, which is book of giving gift. A gift that is given as a gift exchange cannot be taken back, but a gift that is given as a gift can be taken back because the ownership is not transferred. Now, what if the liability of that gift? That is discussed in the book of Hibe. I'm kind of, handpicking or choosing some of the books because I know it is too much, but it's but it's part of the discussion that we are having, and it's better to do it. I recommend that you do it, but I'm going to choose some, and what you could do is you yourself could go through these notes if it is becoming too boring for you guys. I don't know. Then you have wasiya, will, writing of a will. A person who is ill and he knows that he is going to die with that illness, does he have the right to give away or to use his property so that the property is not inherited by the children or not? Can he use it for his personal trips and travel? Yes, he can. Can he give away? No, he cannot. He can give away only from the 1/3. So you have, this is the book of Wasiya. Riwayat discussed here. The book of Talaq, the book of Nikah, the book of Zihar, the book of Itq, the book of La'an. All of these books, if you go through, and perhaps what I could do is I could just translate these terms and make a slide and write like 1 lines, and I will send it to you and you can go through them. So, we are talking about Islamic law here, and law that requires that implementation. All of these things require implementation. These laws are not sent to be put in the, just for the sake of, to stay in the book. It requires implementation. This is why, the fuqaha in the present period or later on, even Sheikh Mufid, when we'll do the last section, the last discussion that we'll be having, like I said, will be on the guardianship of the fuqaha. Sheikh Mufid, he himself have said that these laws are there for implementation, which really means requires a state in which these laws are implemented. So, and these laws are based upon justice, upon adl. You and I, as a believer, we believe that and we say, really, wow. But even if those who do not believe, and if they kind of pay attention to the ahkamat and how subtle the issue of justice is played in defining these laws, one would really benefit a lot. But unfortunately, the West, we tend to see that they are biased. Not just with Islam, for them, when it comes to religion, when it comes to deen, they just don't want to deal with religion at all. Secular law, that's what they want to deal with. There's so much, there are so many flaws in the secular law, but they accept it. But they try to criticize the flaws within the Islamic law. 2 witnesses required of a woman. Well, that is the law, yes, indeed. But there is something else could be applied there, and that is the yaqeen of the judge, which doesn't really need 2 women to witness something. 1 woman is sufficient enough if that brings yaqeen, if that brings certainty to the jurist. So you have these books. Now, going back onto the historical development, now Fakhr al-Muhaqqiqeen was the one who organized these books, who organized this fiqh, worship, 2-party contracts. Then you have 1-party contract, which is talaq. Talaq is a 1-party contract, right? The person, he gives talaq and it's finished. Waqf is a 1-party contract, is a 1-party contract. Itq, freeing of a slave, is considered as a 1-party contract, freeing of a slave. The person, frees a slave. That's it. That's it. Then this is how, and the rest of them are discussed in commands, in other ahkam. Miscellaneous, if you want to call, issues are discussed in ahkam. Like for example, making of instruments, musical instruments, it's halal or not, selling of it, that could come in contract, but making of it itself, keeping it in the house, can we have it in the house or not? That comes under these miscellaneous issues which he defined, or which he regarded them as commands. It's on page 155 of the book that I have. Anyway, so now it was Muhaqqiq who organized this. We are talking about 11th century here. And then after Muhaqqiq, his student is known to be a Muhaqqiq student is Allama Hilli. Allama Hilli as well was someone who quite famous in terms of his contribution towards ahkam, towards fiqh. And one of the greatest contribution would be his student, Allama students, who were quite amazing, like Shaykh Awwal, from Lebanon, Shaykh Awwal. Then you also have, Khaja Nasiruddin Tusi, for instance. Now, not only in fiqh, but we also find that these scholars had students who were expert in theology, in philosophy. For example, one of the famous texts today we have it, one of the famous texts of commentary on Nahj al-Balagha is of Ibn Maysam. Ibn Maysam was the student of Muqayli. So obviously in Nahj al-Balagha as well, you have that contribution. So it you know, the fiqh and fuqaha of Ahl Shia, they were, you know, quite rich. Now, if you want to look at this period here in terms of the political framework, we are talking about, you know, the Abbasids once again coming back to power, the Seljuks as they were, and still there was a room for the Shias to flourish or to move around in a more of a comfortable fashion because of the Crusades. 11th century is the beginning of Crusades, and the Sunnis or the Abbasi Khulafa, they were involved with that, you know, and the Muslim side or the eastern side of the you know, Islamic nations were pretty much relaxed compared to the Western, as they were involved with the Crusaders. So once again, it's good to know, you know, these things that were going around during that period, and how the scholars were kind of dedicating themselves more to towards the Islamic sciences. I think I will leave the last 10 minutes towards question and answer, and then inshallah we will continue from Allama Hilli onwards, and we'll finish the history of the Fuqaha till Ayatollah Naini next session. My apologies for my voice today, and also in regards to the slides that were incomplete. Sure. Brother Salman.
Assalamu alaikum. Anybody have any questions for Maulana? Okay. Well, if not, I mean, we can always, if there are questions that come up, feel free to email or ask on the WhatsApp group, please. Inshallah, then we'll plan on reconvening again at 2 p.m. your time, Maulana, next week. Brother Atif was saying that that would be okay from his side too. It's like 5 or 6 p.m. in Hijaz, and so he was okay to do that, he said. So if that's, you know, continues to be okay for everybody else, we'll plan on meeting again and on next Sunday at 2 p.m. UK time.